Okay, I think we're ready to begin. Bismillah. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Welcome to Arabic Gems Institute. For those of you who don't know much about us, Arabic Gems was founded back in 2007 by Ustdha Ola Shoubaki, and she is going to be leading this webinar and this taster class today. So Ola was born and spent most of her childhood in the UK, but she discovered her love for the Arabic language due to her heritage and her family background. But she took on this interest and passion for the Quran later in life and went on to study and enroll in a degree in Arabic at SOAS. So within the first year of starting the course, her life had been changed forever. And it was through this study of the Arabic language that she felt she had a fundamental change with her relationship with the Quran. And she began teaching Arabic grammar to friends and to family. And this is where her lifelong journey and love of the Quran and the language and teaching that language to others truly began. Arabic through the Quran has run for many years now and has been a real success. We've had so many students who have benefited so much from this course, and I just want to share with you a few of the things that people have said. So we have this beautiful journey of learning awakens your heart and mind to the linguistic perfection and miracle of the Quran. And Ustdha Ola's love and passion for the Quran makes every class a dynamic, enriching, and invigorating experience. So to fully benefit from this course, you need to make that sincere commitment from the beginning. And one thing I wanted to mention before we begin the session is that, you know, whether you have that intention right now to embark upon this course or not, when we come together for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when we engage with the Quran and when we talk about the Quran, there is so much benefit and barakah for all of us. So I pray and I ask Allah to put barakah in this session and for you to take something away from it, something beautiful that will open your heart and connect you to the Quran in your own way. So I'm going to hand over now to Ustdha Ola, and we will begin the session formally, inshallah.
Sister Sarah. Inna alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for attending the Arabic through the Quran taster session today, mashallah. Before I start, I'm just going to share my screen and share the presentation. Now, what I am aiming to do through this taster session is to give you a feel for what a class would be like if you enrolled. But because it's a taster session, I can't go through everything that we would cover in the first class because we just don't have the time. And there's other things I'm going to talk about that I wouldn't normally talk about in the class, explaining the way that the course is set up, etc. So normally in the class, we would go through, or in lesson 1, I'd go through an introduction to language. I would talk about definiteness and indefiniteness in nouns, gender in nouns, adjectives, and simple nominal sentences. Due to time, I'm only going to cover the definiteness and indefiniteness in nouns part of it, inshallah. I'm not going to cover the rest. I'm going to do very, very brief introduction to language, but we won't be covering the rest, okay? So before I start, what is Arabic through the Quran course? How did it come about? What is it all about? Back in, I will say, 2012 or 13, I came upon this book called Arabic Through the Quran by Professor Alan Jones. He's a professor emeritus of Arabic at Oxford University. He's passed away now. He as a teacher, I could see how ingenious this book was. It might not be very obvious to students, and it's quite convoluted for a student to go through by themselves. But I knew that the way that he had arranged the information was, I hadn't seen another textbook like it. So I used this book as the basis for the course, hence the title. And I added many things to it. We have extra consolidation exercises, we have extra testing, more information than is contained in the book. And then what really sets the course and makes it unique, the USP, if you like, of the course, is the gems, which we will come to. So the course that I teach is loosely based on this book by Alan Jones. And because we use his exercises at the end of the lesson, I do request that you purchase this book as a prerequisite for the course, inshallah. But it's also, the Islamic Text Society is also a charity, so it's something that will also benefit, inshallah, the publishers and all on. So, as a very, very short introduction to the language, and I normally go into more depth, it's important to understand what it is that we're doing and how that fits in to the structure of language in general. So the elements of any language are generally three. You have what's called the phonemes, which are the first building blocks of a language, the basic sounds. So for English, it would be ab, b, k, d, e, f, g. Those are the sounds. In Arabic, it would be the sounds of the alphabet, a, d, t, th, j. This part of the language is a prerequisite for you to come in. So I don't teach you the alphabet. I don't teach you how to read. This is something that I ask that you come to the course already knowing how to read, how to join the letters together, what sound each symbol makes. Then you have the morphemes. Now, the morphemes in a language are the smallest unit that carries a meaning. For example, if I look at the word dogs, there are two morphemes in the word dogs. You have the word dog, which refers to the small, furry, four-legged creature. And then you have the S at the end, which indicates that there are more than one of them. This loosely corresponds to the vocabulary. The vocabulary is something that I will give you a list of every week to learn. We have a tool that we use to help us, which I'll speak a little bit more about later on in today's webinar. So the phonemes you will have come to the course knowing. The morphemes are something I'm going to ask you to learn. You'll be tested on every week. And then you have the last part, which is commonly known as the grammar, but actually comprises of two parts, the semantics and the syntax. The semantics are the meanings of the words in a sentence, and the syntax is how we put them together to form that meaning. As I said, in other words, called grammar, and this is what each lesson will generally be focused on. So all these three elements will come together, and that's how you will get language. Now, a lot of people say to me, I've seen lots of courses that just teach the Quran through words. And there are lots of courses. And in fact, we've got one of them in the Arabic Gems Institute, Pearls Revealed, which goes through 60% of the words in the Quran, gives you deeper understanding and appreciation of them. But when it comes to understanding the Quran, so why can't I just learn the words? Why is it necessary to learn the grammar as well? Now, to take you through this, I've got an example. If you knew that the word ذَلِكَ means that, the word yawm means a day, and the word asir means difficult. You might say, well, I can read the Quran and I can make sense of it because I know what these three words mean. But what if they present differently? What if you have ذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ عَسِيرٌ compared to ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْعَسِيرُ compared to ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ عَسِيرٌ? How would you differentiate between? They're slightly different. They're not all exactly the same, even though they've both they've all got the same basic words in them, how would you then differentiate between them all as you're translating? Now, remember that every single letter in the Quran is there intentionally with purpose. So, how would you know the difference if you just knew the words, not the grammar? The difference is a matter of grammar. The difference is a matter of sentence formation. I can tell you that the first sentence, 𝗢𝗘𝗂𝗍𝘂𝗧𝘢, actually means that is a difficult day. A difficult day. Well, ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْعَسِيرُ means that is the difficult day. While ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ عَسِيرٌ means that day is difficult. How would I know the difference between these two? And you might think, well, it doesn't really matter in this instance. Perhaps it doesn't. I would argue that it does. But in other instances, it might make a very, very, very big difference to the meaning. But the only way that you would know the difference between these translations is by learning the grammar, the semantics, and the syntax, how you put the words together to get the intended meaning. So it's not enough to just know the vocab and the words. It will not suffice. And there are actually many other permutations that we can make using these three words. Okay, so it can change the meaning, not just past, present, and future, because that is to do with verbs, Suleiman, but also, as we've seen here, the difference between these three sentences that are all using the same words. When a word is past, present, or future, it will actually look slightly different. These don't look that different. Okay, so it's very important to learn the grammar if you truly want to understand the meaning that is being put across in the Quran. So let me start with a bit of a sneak peek into the first lesson when we talk about definiteness and indefiniteness in nouns. So a noun, as a recap, is a naming word. It's a thing. It's a person or a place or a thing or an idea. In English, there are four major word classes that we can divide words into. We divide them into a noun, a naming word, an adjective, a describing word, a verb, a doing verb, and an adverb. And there are difference of opinions on these word classes. It's not so important, but usually there are four. In Arabic, it's unanimously agreed that there are only three. First of all, you have an ismun, which is a noun. You have a fi'lun, which is a verb. And you have a harf, which is a particle. So what happened to adjectives? Adjectives are considered under the category ism in Arabic. Anything that's not an ism or a fi'l, a noun or a verb, gets dumped in the harf, particle category. But what's important for today's lesson is that every noun, everything, every naming word has to either be definite or indefinite. You can say, I ate the apple. Would that be definite or indefinite? I like the lessons to be a little bit interactive, so if you keep your hands on keyboards, would that be definite or indefinite if you say, I ate the apple? It would be definite because it's a known apple. It is something which you are indicating specifically. So if you say, I ate an apple, then that would be indefinite, something which is unknown. It could be anyone. There isn't a third option. It has to be either definite or indefinite. What about if you say, okay, Ola, I ate his apple. That's not the or an. What would that be? Is that definite or indefinite? his apple. It is a definite apple. It's a specific apple that is known. Okay. For today's lesson, we are only talking about the when it comes to definite. When it comes to his or her or their, etc., we're gonna cover that in lesson 7. But today, when I talk about definite, I'm specifically talking about using the word the to define something. Okay, so how do we say the or an in Arabic then? Well, a definite word is called a ma'rifah, And the way that you say the in Arabic is by putting al at the front of it. So this al would also be attached to the word. So I could say al-kitabu, sorry, for example, al-kitabu, which would mean the book. And it would have to be attached onto it. You can't write it with a gap in between, okay? It has to be attached to the word. Al-kitabu, the book. Al-waladu, the boy. Whenever you see al at the front of a word, you're going to translate it as the. Conversely, the way that you say a or an is by putting a tanween at the end of a word. A tanween is where you have a vowel at the end that's doubled. And that can either be tanween fatha, n, tanween dhamma, un, or tanween kasra, in. But it doesn't matter whether it's fatha, dhamma, or kasra. The fact that it is doubled and it's tanween means it is saying a or an. So, for example, al-kitabu would mean the book, but then kitabun would mean a book. Okay. Al-waladu would mean the boy, but waladun, just by the fact that it has tanween, a doubling of the vowel, means a boy. Okay. Tanween will always only be on the last letter. It will never be on any other letter that's before the last one. Has to be on the last one. You won't find it in the middle of a word. You might then say to me, okay, if you're one of these deep thinkers, what about words like Muhammadun? Muhammadun is a name that refers to a specific person. So it has to be definite because it's referring to a specific person, and yet it has tanween on the end of it. So how does that work? The reason that you sometimes have names with tanween on the end of them is that tanween didn't always used to mark indefiniteness. Sometimes it would simply mark the absence of an al at the beginning. So the fact that there was no al at the beginning meant that there would be tanween at the end. Okay, language has now evolved. We're talking about evolved before the time of the Qur'an, to then have tanween being a marker of indefiniteness. Okay, so if I ever talk about language evolving, I'm not talking about it moving on post-Quranic period. I'm talking about pre the Quranic revelation, because since then it has been preserved. But this is why sometimes you will have a tanween on the end of a proper name referring to a person, obviously has to be definite. Now, how do we do it then? What's the process that we would use that if we have an indefinite word and we want to make it definite? What's the process? For some, it might be straightforward. For others, it's not. So I try and cover it for everyone. First of all, you would take the word in the indefinite, such as biladun, meaning a town. You would drop one of the final vowels of the tanween. So biladun becomes biladu, because I've dropped the tanween. Now, the tanween dhamma, you will see written in one of 3 ways. And all of them are just variations on tanween dhamma. In tajweed, in the Quranic script, they sometimes mean different things, but in Arabic language, not related to tajweed, they have they can be presented one of three ways. It will either look like this, or like this, or like this. And all of them are just variations of a tanween dhamma. Just so happens that in my computer script, it is written like that, okay? So, biladun, remove one of the dhammas, and you have biladu, and then prefix al to the front, al-biladu. So this is a town, the town, okay? To then make a definite word indefinite, you start with the definite al-rasul, you drop the al, and you get rasulu, and then you double the final vowel to make a tanween, rasulun. So this would mean the messenger, a messenger. Okay. How about the word 𝗘𝘂𝗿𝗄𝗏? What would that mean? 𝗘𝘂𝗿𝗄𝗏. How would you translate that if the word kitab means book? How would you translate it, Sulaiman? 𝗘𝘂𝗿𝗄𝗏. The book. Maimuna, the book. Saima, Sumaya, not the book. Nasreen, why is it not correct? The book. I do like giving trick questions, and my students now know to always, if I'm asking a question, doesn't mean that there's an answer. Right, so it cannot have an al and a tanween at the same time, because as it is definite and indefinite at the same time, which is impossible. It can either be definite or indefinite. It can either have al or have tanween. It can never have both. You might sometimes find a word that doesn't have al or tanween. We'll get onto this later on in lesson 7 or 8. But you will never find one that has al and tanween. Okay, so never be tempted to do this. Okay, because should it be a book or should it be the book? Neither of them. Okay, let's do some practice. Here I have a list of words. It doesn't actually matter what they mean for the purpose of this exercise. There's a list of words in the right-hand column. They are all definite. And in the left column, they are all indefinite. I want you to make the ones in the right-hand column indefinite. And I want you to make the ones in the left-hand column definite, please. Okay. If you struggle and you want to look at the words at the same time as the process, I've got them both on the screen here together for you. Maybe choose 3 from each column, and then we'll look at the answers together because we won't have time for everybody to do all of them. Okay. So choose 3 from the right-hand column and 3 from the left-hand column. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. If you have any questions in the meantime, please type them. Write it down, Nasreen. Very good. If it has a dhamma, the sixth column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Does it follow the same steps? So all of them have got tenweens on them. Sumaya. Oh. On the end of all of these are tenweens. So all of these on the left column would follow the top method to make it definite, and all the ones in shadda, yes, shadda's fine. Yes, it would be the same. Okay, just one more minute and then we'll go through the answers. Oh yeah, okay. Nasreen, your last one needs correction. That's better. I know there's a typo in there, but it's better. Okay, here are the answers. Check the ones that you have tried against what I've written here, but I've intentionally made some mistakes. So I also want you to spot the mistakes for me. Okay, if you got any of them wrong and you don't understand why you got them wrong, then please do ask. الأجر أجر الآية آية الخليفة خليفة اليوم يوم الشديد شديد الأمين أمين العزيز عزيز. Right, so that's right, May. The first mistake is in al-azizu being written as azizun. This is a common mistake that people tend to make when they are trying to dictate a word rather than copy it as it is, that if their own makharij is wrong. So Arabic is a very, very phonetic language in that you write what you hear. There are not a lot of difficulties in writing. Spelling is not an issue like it is in English. But if you don't pronounce the word properly and you try and write it down, then it's common to mistake letters for how you're saying them. So you have to be very careful in trying to pronounce letters the way that they should be pronounced so that you actually know what letter they are when you're writing. Al-a should be a, zizun with a ain there. An imaginary sukun, okay. And then you have ardun al-ardu, fawzun al-fawzu, wasi'un al-wasi'u, karimun al-karimu. Al-karimun, oh yes. People have written that, yes. Al-karimu, it should be al-karimu, not karimun. Just the one dhamma. Majidun, well done, Maymuna. Should be al-majidu with a dal. Don't miss letters off because sometimes it really changes the meaning. Ummun, al-ummu, and rahmatun, ar-rahmatu. Very good, okay. So that is the first part of what we would cover in the first quarter of the lesson normally. What we would also do typically in a lesson is, where applicable, and almost every lesson, I won't say every lesson, almost every lesson, we have everybody's favorite part, including mine, which is the gems. How do I apply what I've just learnt in order to access the deeper meanings of the Quran? Okay. So let's look at an ayah that many people know, and many people know a gem of, but probably not the gem that we're going to talk about. The ayah فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, and it goes on, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Many people take this to mean, and very rightly so, that with one hardship come two eases, because the ayah is repeated. But that's not all there is in this ayah. What you can notice in this ayah, based on what we've just learned, is that one of the words is definite and one word is indefinite. You have al-usri, hardship, which has been mentioned in the definite, and yusra, ease, being mentioned in the indefinite. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ الْيُسْرَ, or he could have said, فَإِنَّ مَعَ عُسْرٍ يُسْرًا. But he didn't. In his infinite wisdom, he said, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ definite, yusra indefinite. And most people don't stop and think about this, even people who already know Arabic. So what I try and do from lesson 1 is try and get you ready to have a lens of gem hunters, so that as you're reading the Quran, you're looking specifically for certain things. And alhamdulillah, by the beginning of term 3 on our Telegram group, I have my students coming up with things that they've read from the Quran and saying, is the reason that it's been said in this way and not in this way because of X, Y, Z? I say, yes, you don't need me anymore. You have got, mashallah, you are amazing gem hunters. So let's think, why? Why is it فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا? Well, remember that a word that's definite is something, a definite word is something specific, defined, limited, known. That's what makes it definite. If I talk about the apple, it is something that you know. That's why I can say the. It is something specific. It is something that is limited. If I talk about a word that's indefinite, it's undefined, it's unlimited, it's unknown. So now, bearing that in mind, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Indeed, inna, with a limited, defined, known, set hardship, is yusra, in the indefinite, an unlimited, undefined, unknown amount of ease. Something very small, so something that's definite is limited in its amount, in its nature, whereas something that's indefinite is unlimited and undefined in its nature. Okay. Another one. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Allahu as-samadu. Again, in the first ayah, Allah spoken about being ahad in the indefinite tanween. In the second ayah, Allahu as-samadu, definite. Al could have made it definite for both. It could have made them indefinite for both. There is a particular reason and a particular secret as to why he has done this. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. What does ahad mean? What does ahad mean? one. One in the meaning of one in the sense of being unique, right? In the sense of being nobody like him. If somebody is unique and one, it means that we cannot define that person because they are indefinable. They are unique. So we cannot define Allah. And that's why it's more befitting to use the word ahad in the indefinite, because something that's indefinite has not been defined. So it would have been less befitting and less perfect, and every placement of every letter in the Quran is perfect. It would have been less perfect to use it in the definite, because it would almost be contradicting itself if you look at the deeper meaning of what a definite word indicates. And then you have as-samad. What does as-samad mean? So actually, if you go to Qur'an.com and you compare all the translations of this word samad, you will find many, many different translations. Some will say the sustainer, some will say the refuge, some will say the eternal, some will say the absolute, some will say the self-sufficient. But one of the meanings is the sustainer, i.e. the one that everyone turns to, the one that everyone needs. And actually, the scholars say that this was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to mention this statement to the mushrikeen, to the Quraysh, who were worshipping others besides him, worshipping Lat and Uzza and the idols. So he was told to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, but at the same time, they knew they used these idols as intermediaries for Allah, to get to Allah. Meaning they knew that if they wanted to turn to anyone, it would be to turn to Allah, but they used these idols as intermediaries. So because they knew him already as being such, they knew him and they understood that this is who Allah was, it was used in the definite because it was something that was known. It's a quality of his that is already known. So can you see that just by understanding and keeping your eyes open for either words, two words that are in the same ayah that are used in the definite or in an indefinite, or in parallel ayahs that are used in the definite, it can add so much depth to your understanding of the Quran. And there's one more that I love, and all my students say that I have this one. That this is not to do with the definite or indefinite, but it's just another one that indicates and shows you the layers of meaning that are completely bypassed when you read the translation. And it's through this ayah in Surah Ibrahim. It's actually part of an ayah, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Now, if I was going to read this ayah in the translation, it would say something along the lines of, if you give me thanks, I will give you more, or I will surely give you more. And it's a very nice concept that you might think, oh, that's a nice message, and then move on to ayah number 8. This is ayah number 7, and carry on reading. It's not really something that would make you stop and pause and really ponder and think and take it on as a life message. And yet, from the language used, I can tell you that is what Allah wants us to do. He wants us to take it on as a motto or a key in our lives. And how do I know that? There's a principle that when you emphasize something, it's because the person who you're speaking to might not necessarily pay you the attention that you want them to pay you. So you emphasize that. And that emphasis can either be in the way that you raise your voice, it could be in the stress and the intonation that you put on certain words. or it could be in hand gestures, it could be in facial expressions. But when it comes to a written text, you don't have all of those. So you use modes of emphasis in writing, emphatic particles. And the more that you want a person to listen to your words, the more you will emphasize them. Okay. Now, most messages are emphasized with one emphatic particle. Some really important ones are emphasized using 2. Others could be emphasized using 3. But in these 3 words, there are actually 4 emphatic particles being used. So this is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, I really, really, genuinely need you to listen, not need you, want you to listen and pay attention and take heed of this message. And the message is that if you give thanks, I will increase you. I will give you more. That's all it takes, giving thanks. And he knows that we're not going to listen to the message. And that's why he's emphasized it 4 times. There is not a way of translating this into English. How do you translate 4 emphases for one message in English? It's impossible. And that's why in the translation, it is not put across. And that's why by looking at the translation alone, we really deprive our souls of this message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us. So this is another really important reason why we should learn the Arabic and why we should access the message of the Quran in its Arabic and not suffice with the translation. So these are some of the gems and the types of gems that we give you throughout the classes where applicable. Most lessons do have some gems or not. So what we do at the end of the lesson then is we have a series of homeworks. You have to learn the vocab at the end of chapter 1, at the end of each chapter. Then we have a translation exercise. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that. And you will then submit it on the learning platform, and that will be marked and resubmitted to you. You then have 2 quizzes, one to test you on the vocab and one to test you on the grammar. And you have an extra consolidation homework. The consolidation homework really, really helps you understand and apply all the rules that I've taught you so that they are very firmly embedded in your understanding. And then there's also a short research homework to do based on what we're going to learn the next lesson. The way that we have our lessons is through a platform called Moodle. And you will see the name of your course. This will be 2024/2 for this batch. And each week you will have your lesson and all the different homeworks. That's where you'll access them. You'll access the handout of the class like we just did today. You would already have had that available to you to print out beforehand, so you don't have to worry about frantically making notes. Rather, you can listen and absorb what's being said and annotate as you like, and all the other homeworks are there as well. When it comes to the translation homework, this is from the Alan Jones book that I said that you would need to buy. And the beauty of this is right from lesson 1, you're actually translating portions of ayahs based on the vocab that you've learnt and the grammar that I've taught you. Here are the ayah references. So you're working very, very intimately with the Quranic text right from lesson 1. So you genuinely feel like you are actually learning through the Quran. Every single word, by the way, every single grammar rule that I teach you is from the Quran. I'm not going to include other words that are not from the Quran. I'm not going to include other rules. There are some rules of Arabic that don't occur in the Quran because, in my opinion, it's much more important to learn to understand the message of the Creator before anything else. To help learn the vocab, we have a course that I have uploaded onto a platform called Memrise. Some people find it easy to just learn vocab lists as they are like this in the book, where you just have the black and white like that. Whereas on Memrise, we have our course Arabic through the Quran, where Memrise was designed by a memory champion, and it's a little bit like Quizlet, if you're familiar with Quizlet, where it tests you on a group of words, and then if you don't know them, it will go back to them. So it's just a tool to help you learn, but people find it very useful to use this in their learning. There's a leaderboard where you can compete with your fellow students as well. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. The point is just to learn the words, and Memrise is just a way of helping you learn. There's also the audio. I've recorded the audio of each word there as well. So if you have questions, then people say, how do I ask the questions? You have, as you saw today, you can ask them directly through the class itself. You can ask in the office hours sessions. This time might change, probably will change by an hour or so, but this time was for the previous group. I still have to set the time, but there's going to be one office hours or practice session per week, which people find very, very useful. If you don't have any questions, then we go through other practice exercises, which is just about applying things that we've learnt in a practical way. During the live class, only the chat box will be open. You won't be able to get on the mics because it will interrupt the flow of the lesson. But the practice session is much more interactive. You can get on the mics, ask your questions there as well. We also have our communities, which is the student forums on Moodle, where you can share resources, which people do, ask questions, or the student Telegram group, which is, alhamdulillah, quite active with people asking, helping, forming those communities that are really necessary when it comes to online learning. Alhamdulillah, students really, really benefit from the course. They do say that it changes their relationship completely with the Quran. We have a lot of testimonials on our website, arabicgems.co.uk, that are genuine testimonials from students throughout the years. So I would really recommend you take some time out to read these testimonials and use them as inspiration, because if they can achieve it, then so can you. And you might have seen an Instagram post that I had recently where one of my current students, we were in a practice session and she wasn't getting the answer. It was quite an interactive one because only 2 students turned up that time. So I was going between her and the other student. And she said to me, go a little bit easier on me, please, Ustdha, because I'm in my 70s now and my mind doesn't work as well as my younger colleagues. So subhanAllah, if somebody at that age is, subhanAllah, dedicating themselves towards this, then and is able quite successfully to do it, then we don't have any excuses in our younger years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to take benefit of your youth before your old age and your free time before you're preoccupied. So a lot of people worry that I don't have the free time, or I'm not going to be able to do it. But all Allah wants to see is that you are trying and that you are consistent and that you're making the effort. And then the outcome of it is with Him, and the success of it is with Him. But He just wants to see the effort. So, if you want to achieve what they have, this was a student who was in her 2nd term. She hadn't even finished the course yet. And she said that by Ramadan, it changed the way that she was able to engage with the Quran. She was able to understand parts being recited in Salah. So if you do sign up for the next 24 hours, we're offering a 15% discount on the entire course. If you have any questions, then please do ask them now. Brother Sulaiman, things that take longer are fine. And we know that the person who recites the Quran with difficulty gets more reward than the one who recites with ease. So if you don't let that stop you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Are there any more questions about the course and how it is run and anything in general. Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Ustdha Ola. Just while these questions are coming in, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for today's session and to thank all of you who have joined us this evening. We truly hope and pray that you found benefit in the time that you've spent here, and that this is just a small glimpse into the course. And I really hope that this has inspired you to deepen your connection with the Quran. And we'd love to hear your key takeaways. You can share them in the chat along with any other questions that you might have. So as Ustdha Ola has already mentioned, we're really happy to announce that this is the official launch of our September cohort for Arabic through the Quran. It's an incredible opportunity to delve into the richness of the Quran. And as you've probably already noticed from today's session, it really goes beyond anything that a translation can give and really gets to the essence, to the deeper level. And it is something that's going to give you a profound appreciation for every single word. So just imagine for a moment understanding the beauty and the power behind the verses that you recite. So if you do feel ready to embark on this journey, simply click on the link in the chat. We've put the details there. It will give you all the information on how to sign up. And the exciting part is that because you've attended this session today, we are offering you an exclusive 15% discount. But don't wait too long, because this offer is only available for the next 24 hours. So this is your chance. There's no time like the present, as they say, and this is your chance to really immerse yourself in the Quran and experience that transformative and powerful understanding that you can gain when you really dive deep into that original language that the Quran was written in. So we'd be honored to have you join us. Thank you once again for being here, and we will just have a little look through the messages and the questions, and I'm sure Ustdha Ola will happily answer any questions that you have, inshallah.
So going through the questions, Ismaila, will there be a short version of the course? It's difficult to condense it any shorter than it is. It's only 11 months, in which time you will be understanding about 80% of the Quran. So it's difficult to make it any shorter than that. Saima, you don't have to be fluent, you just have to know how the letters join together so that you can read the Arabic words there. And as you are dealing more with the Quranic text through the course, you will find that your fluency automatically improves by itself. But it doesn't help with speaking. We don't focus on speaking because, as I said, the focus is more about understanding the message of Allah through the Quran on a deeper level than a translation would give you. Sumaya, the actual taught course is between 1.5 to 2 hours a week, and that's a live class. And then there's also a practice session, which is another hour. That one is optional, but very beneficial. You will then need to do extra homework for however long that takes you. I recommend giving about 30 minutes a day at the same time of day, every day, so that it's your consistent time for dealing with the Quran. Because as you're doing this, you are actually interacting with the Quran, so it's your Quran time, even though it's Arabic. There will be a recording, Hani, that you will be sent if you have registered, inshallah. So Ismaila, we're not actually studying the Quran as such, we're studying the language so that you then have the tools to access the whole of the Quran, inshallah. Zlacha, it is on a Thursday, inshallah. It's on a Thursday. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sulaiman. Any more questions? Simon, if you were able to read the words that I put on the screen, then that will be fine. You don't have to You have to know the letters, you have to know how they join. I wouldn't let, as long as you know the letters and you know how they join, I wouldn't let that stand in your way. That is just the shaitan trying to deter you. When I started Arabic at university, I was very, very slow at reading, but just through using it all the time, it automatically sped up and the fluency automatically came. Yes, we do i'rab in our own way. We don't have a specific lesson for them, but by the end of it, you will have an understanding of i'rab. But Ismaila, the aim of the course is to get you to understand the Qur'an, not to make you grammarians, but to understand the Qur'an with the grammar that you will need for that. So we do some i'rab, but not in the way that you probably know it. Mariama, it's at 8:30 UK time, and it usually lasts between 1.5 to 2 hours. Yeah, Saima, if you take that first step and you make that sacrifice and you make dua and you keep on making dua for Allah to make it easy for you, then that's what Allah wants to see. He wants to see that you're actually making the effort. So Saima, yes, every Thursday is the live class. There are a few midterm and end of term breaks, but generally it's every Thursday for 11 months, apart from the breaks. Yes, there will be recordings, and you will have access to the recordings for a whole year after the course ends. Wajiha, the course is £450, but there is a 15% discount for the next 24 hours, bringing it down to 383 for the whole year. Nasreen, you have tests every week for vocab and grammar, and then you have end of term tests, and then you have a final course test as well. Inshallah, Mariama.
I just wanted to mention as well to everyone that there is also a PayPal credit option. So if you did want to spread the cost of payment over installments, that is also an opportunity that you can take, inshallah. We'd love to have any further questions. The links are there in the chat box. So please do take advantage of the special discount. We would hate for you to miss out on that opportunity. And we don't want to allow any time for shaitan to creep in and give you all the reasons why now is not the right time, because there's never a right time. It's always good to act with our intentions and take these opportunities as soon as we possibly can, inshallah.
Any more questions? If you do have any more questions, you can always message us on Instagram or to support@Arabic Gems Institute, which I'm writing in the chat box now, and we'll be happy to take your questions there. Nope. Okay, if there are no more questions, then inshallah we will end. جزاكم الله خيرا. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.